Good evening and welcome to Mindful Live. I'm your host, the co-host on some nights, Nathan Springer. Thank you for joining me. It is presently the 3rd of February. Yeah. The year is running away. We're already in the second month and 3 days into the second month. You blink and 3 days gone in February. Black History Month for some, the shortest month. Interesting, eh? Interesting. They give you all Black History on the shortest month of the year. Welcome. Make sure you hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on TikTok if you're wondering how to hit it there. And be sure to hit that like button. Then be sure to hit that like button over on YouTube if you are viewing this live there. Be sure you are subscribed to the channel Nathan Springer over there on YouTube. Big help when you do just that. Appreciate it every time. All right, so yeah, well, not early, but not that late. So we are talking briefly about the issues facing Trinidad as pertaining to Petrotrin, etc. And many people complain about Petrotrin closing and what we could have done and what we should have done and all of that. But to me, the arguments for and even against Petrotrin, a lot of the arguments start at the wrong place. The problem, as stated and shown, was that Petrotrin was busting. Petrotrin was losing money. If Petrotrin was losing money, we can't come with the argument that, well, we should have keep Petrotrin open. No, because it was losing money. The argument must entail what we could have done or should have done that would have changed Petrotrin from losing money to gaining us money, and then keeping it open would have made sense. To just jump in and say we should have kept it open as a blind pledge because is we own and we think and we was making fuel, it does not make sense like that. To me, the analogy I was going to say, to me that's like, I don't know how many of you have ever opened a home parlor, a little shop in your front yard, a little shop in front of your house. If anybody else has opened one of those and faced the challenges that many Trinis face when they open such things, where the customers aren't the ones getting most of the goods. Members of your household start drinking and eating out your parlor. If there's nothing you could do to stop members of your household from drinking and eating out your parlor, do we keep the parlor open and say, well, what we have to do is stop George and them from drinking the sea drink? And if we stop George and them from drinking out the sea drink and eating out the corn curls, greetings, and eating out the corn curls, then the parlor go work real good. But the problem is, we can't stop George and them from eating and drinking. We've been trying, and nobody has been able to stop Georgie, Porgy, and those guys from eating and drinking out the parlor. So we closed down the parlor, and now we're complaining that we have to go and buy a Gelita Coke from somewhere else. So we have to go and buy Coke from Jamaica. Yes, we have to. Because we were robbing ourselves. When we had our own parlor open, we were eating out all the corn curls, drinking out all of the chubby, and guzzling the juice. We can't keep the parlor open just for Georgie, Porgy, and those guys to keep eating our food. I didn't work at Petrotrin. I didn't benefit from that gravy train. I don't care for it because it was a net loss to me. When you tell me and complain about buying bunker fuel now that, oh no, Trinidad has to buy bunker fuel from Jamaica, you have to show me then that this bunker fuel we're buying is going to lose for me way more than Petrotrin was losing for me. Lystra, that's such a cowardly, pathetic argument. You need to research. You need to research that. Well, then say what's wrong. Say where we're wrong. Don't jump in with the coward leftist argument of, oh, you trust me, you need to research this, because I know we're not gonna say what it is, but if you only read and research, give me a chance. But we're not talking Petrotrin issues this evening, actually. That's not what we're here for. Petrotrin has long been closed now, since 2019. We might make more money as a middleman than a producer, quite possibly. We certainly wouldn't lose as much. And maybe Lystra had a fiancé or a husband that was sucking our blood inside Petrotrin, and that's what they're happy and envious and missing now. But for those of us who weren't part of the gravy train, the bunch of leeches, we weren't benefiting. We weren't. We were just losing tax money. Same thing with Caroni. Caroni open, people stealing fertilizer, stealing machinery, stealing equipment, stealing seedlings, stealing everything from Caroni. And then they're upset that Caroni has to be shut down. So we as a country, we're supposed to just pay for your greed? It's the same thing that they're facing right now in the United States. Elon Musk is going through their federal government with a razor and cutting from a side. USAID, they're aiming to shut it fully down. Fully shut it down. That's what they're aiming to do. Okay. Many of the people in there are complaining, oh my goodness, the help that this was doing, because it was lining their pockets. How much you was paying for gas? Very low, very, very little. But then how much am I paying now? Because of that. One thing leads to the other. Do you think it's magic that if we kept Petrotrin open by magical forces, gas prices for us would have just remained low? Didn't they start to raise the gas prices before they closed Petrotrin? Before they closed Petrotrin, the gas prices started to rise, not so? I do not want to pay other people to be lazy. And that's what lots of funding from the government inevitably does. The taxes that people pay, they have to go and work hard to pay that. The government can't just use that willy-nilly and say, well, we have to keep the Petrotrin open, we have to keep Caroni. Imagine Caroni still open, Petrotrin still open, all of these people making all of their pay, making all of their salaries still, and the country losing billions every year for that. How is that fair to the rest of the country? How does that add up for the rest of the country? So, if you want to argue for Petrotrin, your argument cannot come from, as I said before, your argument cannot come from Petrotrin should have stayed open. That's a bad starting point. You have to explain how we would have realistically changed it around to keep it open. How are you going to get rid of that whole big, long list of unionized, unfireable workers? How are you going to get rid of them? When every successive government hires in a whole new troop of their friends that the next government cannot fire, but they're going to hire in a new troop on top of that. Where does that end? Where does that end? And that's what I mean about the argument. I am not saying you can't argue that Petrotrin should have been left open, but the argument can come from just, we should have leave it open. That's not, because it wasn't just magic. It's not magic. The maths has the maths. We aren't even capable, like the United States, of printing money out, printing our way out of our problems with money. We don't even have that ability. We have to borrow it. Come now, man. So we were going to just keep borrowing money to pay? Come now, man. But let's look to talk about Tanti Erla. Tanti Erla has found herself in some difficult waters. Really difficult waters. But it's causing some bacchanal at the top of the police service, because there's a bit of back and forth. Some saying she has to go, some saying she is gone, and her lawyer seems to have a different view of the whole thing. I remember we were speaking about this last week and saying, if they arrest her without a charge, that seems to be like they're going to have to pay some money. Reeve says about difficult waters, she done drunk. You know, Reeve, I don't know if I'll say that, you know, bro. I don't know if I'll say she already drowned, because they didn't charge her with anything. At the end of the 3 days, there were no charges. And at least from the public discourse thus far, it seems like charges may be a distance away, if any are there at all. Ronnie says if I was not going. Well, she doesn't seem to want to go. PNM paid $26 million for the expertise of Ashley to provide a report that never said to shut down.
Can you bring my light bulb?
What did the report say, Davy? What did the report say? Yeah, but Tanti is in some problems. Let's see if we could jump into some news on that right now. DPP orders Erla released without charges in weapons probe. Investigations continuing. Davy says to restructure for the millionth time. To restructure it again and again and again. I'm sorry, but the restructuring wasn't working. So they restructured it into closure and restructured it into paria. What restructuring was going to say? Anyway, let's talk about Erla. After spending close to 3 days in police custody and undergoing an unrelenting interrogation by junior officers, that's interesting, an emotional and visibly shaken commissioner of police walked out of the St. Clair police station a free woman last evening. Offering a tremulous smile as she stood sandwiched between a legal team, Erla Howard Christopher clasped her hands and stood silently as the head of her legal team's senior counsel, Pamela Elder, addressed reporters, confirming no charges had been proffered against Howard Christopher and that this lack of evidence had led to her client's eventual release around 5:30 p.m. Elder said the top cop had endured the interrogation as a suspect. Exactly, Joe. Joe says the water may be rough, but she's not in so much trouble as it seemed to be initially. That's what it seems like to me. Elder added the commissioner of police was questioned not as a person from whom the officers wanted information, but she was cautioned. We all know, or we should know, that a caution is administered to a person against whom the officer has a reasonable grounds to suspect the person has committed an offense. Confirming she had sat through the cop's interview along with her junior attorney, Elder criticized the process. At the end of this interview, it was lucidly clear that there was not one drop of evidence against the commissioner, and in an immediate challenge to those spearheading the investigation, Elder demanded the burning question, which I would like answered, is who is the senior officer that authorized the arrest of the commissioner of police on material that did not establish grounds to suspect? That's a question. Who authorized the arrest of the commissioner of police without enough grounds where you know you are going to charge her after? Who authorized that? That's interesting to me. To me, if you're arresting people of high office, if you're arresting people of repute, then you only arrest them when you're relatively sure that a charge could be made. Like, if you look what they did to Diddy. That arrest only came when they were pretty sure he was never going to leave that cell again. And I'm not saying that I want the commissioner locked up. I'm saying that I question why arrest her if you're unable to prove anything. They keep saying the DPP is a person or a division. Well, the DPP is a person, but the office of the DPP is an office. Yeah, Joe, he was. And they only pull the trigger when they're sure they're hitting. Or pretty sure they're hitting. Saluting Herwood Christopher for maintaining a stoic and calm demeanor throughout the ordeal, Elder urged, I want to assure the nation that they should maintain faith in their commissioner of police. She is a strong woman. Maintain faith in that office holder. Elder also called on people to maintain faith also in the Director of Public Prosecutions, who was strong enough, praising the DPP Senior Counsel Roger Gaspard for his ability to discern the lack of any evidence. Elder said, I'm very glad and happy that he shows there is a true separation of powers existing in TNT. Turning back to what had prompted investigators to arrest Christopher, Elder questioned, what was the basis for the arrest? She added, this is what I keep asking. Why wasn't she questioned without an arrest? I will put it in very simple words to tell the police officers, look, get away from here, release the commissioner. Elder revealed during the questioning she was told that officers had evidence that she and other persons unlawfully procured the firearms and ammunition. And the question I asked of the officers is, who are the other persons? Indicating fairness dictated that her client be informed who she was jointly accused alongside, the senior counsel said. The response of that officer was that he would not divulge names of the other persons. Elder demanded to know who orchestrated this. Was it designed to humiliate the commissioner? Is there a hidden agenda somewhere there? Elder assured that these burning questions would be answered in due course and indicated that as her attorney, I would advise her that this matter not rest here. Yeah. Taxpayers will have to pay for a huge lawsuit that will be coming. Davis says Rila is 3 months away from a contractual renewal. Smokescreen to shift the narrative from Imbud. Oh my goodness. Y'all in the live, at least for the other viewers in the live, y'all see what I talk about with the UNC narratives. Y'all see them because they're like copy and paste. They all come with the same thing. Saying the same thing where they obviously didn't read past a few headlines. All have that same silly narrative. A smokescreen to shift the narrative from Imbut. My goodness. The smokescreen wouldn't work because Imbut's issue is not a public opinion issue. You do a distraction on public opinion issues. Imbert's issue is a court case that is going to go on. We're going to see where that court case goes. And that court case is going to conclude after this whole brouhaha. So where's the distraction? Y'all stay on the Mindful Live. Get some proper narratives from here now. Run with the Mindful Live narratives now. Leave the UNC pages narratives, because they put you into ignorance. They put you into ignorance. Yes, people tag me in them. I see them all about TikTok. I see they have a lot of likes, but they gain you no new support because they make no sense. They make no sense. How is the UNC ever going to move the PNM with this kind of thinking and behavior? It's not going to work. No new supporters are running after you with these narratives. Back on Erla. Erla steps aside. House to meet Wednesday on acting commissioner. The House of Representatives is expected to meet on Wednesday to discuss the notification of the president for the appointment of an acting commissioner of police. This meeting has been triggered by the separation of Police Commissioner Erla Howard Christopher from the Office of Commissioner of Police by the Police Service Commission. It is understood that Howard Christopher was asked to step aside by the Police Service Commission during the ongoing investigation. Trinidad and Tobago is in a state of emergency, and it is therefore critical to have a police commissioner in place. Howard Christopher, we know all of this, and all of this. Sources said the merit list is making its way to the president. The merit list is submitted to the president by the Police Service Commission, and the president would then submit a notification in respect to the top person nominated by the commission on the order of the merit list. So, reportedly, the grounds that they removed her on was because the DCP in charge of investigations reportedly informed them that she was under investigation. And I mean, does under investigation bring grounds for removal? Y'all may know if you're a regular viewer of this live, I am not a particular fan of Mrs. Howard Christopher in the role of Commissioner of Police. I do not find her particularly proficient at the job. But is investigation grounds for removal enough? Because yes, you arrested her, but there were no charges. An arrested person who is not charged is, in the eyes of the law, an innocent person. Davy says, in the middle of a state of emergency, why all this? Very good question, Davy. Very good question. And Mr. Gary Griffith postulates a reason why, but we'll get to that in a bit. Erla fires back. Withdraw my suspension. The arrest, detention, and suspension of the Commissioner of Police has taken another turn, with lawyers for Erla Howard Christopher calling on the Police Service Commission to withdraw its letter suspending the top cop. Howard Christopher's lawyer, Senior Counsel Pamela Elder, on Monday wrote to the chairman of the Police Service Commission, Wendell Wallace, calling for the letter sent to Howard Christopher to be withdrawn and the suspension immediately rescinded. The Police Service Commission was given until 2 p.m. Tuesday to act, or judicial review proceedings would be initiated. So her lawyers are on this. And I don't know. She may win such a case. Because do they have solid grounds for removal? Now, here's the thing. I believe, yes, I didn't read the whole thing, Saunders. I read piece. I believe, though, that she is under contract from the government. So I believe that the government is able to cancel her contract at will. As we heard from a former Police Service Commission member, the Tobago business chamber head, Martin George, he was saying that similar happened. I'm not saying that at all, Steve. He was saying that similar happened with Iwatsky and Gibbs, the Canadian officers that were commissioner and assistant back in the early partnership time. They were removed because they were on contract. So their contract could be rescinded, and when the contract was rescinded, they were removed. So probably similar could happen here with Christopher, because she is on contract. She has a special extension because of her retirement that lasts, I believe, year on year. So although she may have a bit of room to squeeze the Police Service Commission, I think the government would be able to remove her. And with the thing with some of these issues, as I've seen happen over and over in our courts, even including Ms. Harewood Christopher herself, she has been instructed by the court to make certain moves, to make certain decisions, and she has plain flat out refused to do so. There is a police officer, I can't remember how far the case reached right now, who was threatening to bring up contempt of court proceedings against the commissioner because of her refusal to take action on a ruling. So the reality here is, even with this letter, the Police Service Commission could go ahead, keep the suspension out there, go ahead, hire a new commissioner, go ahead, send it through the parliament, go ahead, the parliament confirm it, we have a new police commissioner, and now Ms. Pamela Elder, senior counsel, files that review and whatever, it takes its way through the court system, they appeal, it reaches to the Privy Council says, no, you all should not have fired her. But if this all happens 2 years later, if 2027 we're discussing, oh my goodness, you hear that Miss Harewood Christopher win her case against the Police Service Commission, what profit is that going to be by then? We would already be 2 years into a new police commissioner. She would already be in retirement. The only thing that would happen is she would win some money. So as we said last week, and Ronnie reiterated, it's very likely, according to what those in power want, what the powers that be are interested in, it's very likely that they basically pay her to get rid of her. Because I am not sure if there is much recourse you can get from a court in this line here. If somehow you could get out to a court and get an emergency injunction that prevents the Police Service Commission from doing that, well, then maybe. But I'm not sure if that's even possible. And she said the Police Service Commission has until Tuesday to act, or the proceedings would be filed, while we read that the Parliament or the Cabinet is meeting on Wednesday to decide on a next commissioner, at least an acting one. But on what grounds? Can't just end my contract for no reason. Actually, in many cases, they can, according to the type of contract it is. Many of those contracts can be ended and rescinded at pretty short notice. They'll just pay you out. They pay you out for the remainder of the contract and tell you bye-bye, as they did with Gibbs and Iwatsky. So, and how much longer does she have anyway on this contract? Griffith buying sniper rifles for SSA is no crime. Former Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith says the purchase of sniper rifles for the Strategic Services Agency is not a criminal offense and cannot be used to justify the arrest and questioning of incumbent Commissioner of Police Harewood Christopher. He claimed there were some people in the ranks of the police who were constantly trying to displace others to get their jobs. Good night. What is being said is that the Police Service Commission had no complaint to take such action. Didn't the Police Service Commission allege or say that the complaint came from the Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of investigations? Now, I saw that they said the police released a statement clarifying what that deputy said, saying that she didn't go as far as some are saying. But to me, the Police Service Commission is claiming that a complaint was filed from them. I guess we would see that we would get a resolution there. What is the legal facts would have to come out eventually, because it is being sought after in the court of law. What Griffith is alleging is that the upper ranks of the police service is a crab in a barrel battle. That the crabs are all attempting to pull each other down so that the lower crabs could climb higher. This is the allegation coming from a former commissioner of police. Griffith called for the immediate removal of the police's Professional Standards Bureau and a return to the use of internationally accredited institutions, to select commissioners of police and deputy commissioners instead of the Police Service Commission. As a former Commissioner of Police, National Security Minister, and Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force officer, Griffith said he had more knowledge than most people about what could have been at the heart of Haywood Christopher's predicament. In a WhatsApp video on February 2nd, he said, "It is amazing that up to now, the police service cannot say what they plan to arrest and charge Earl Christopher for." Griffith said the Firearms Act only allowed the police and TTDF to bring in prohibited weapons. The SSA is not seen as a law enforcement agency, so they will not be entitled to have prohibited weapons because all the individuals in the SSA are hired as civilians. He said there was nothing illegal about sniper rifles being bought for the SSA. A sniper rifle is not a prohibited weapon because it is not an automatic weapon. Griffith claimed someone in the police's legal department who is not very bright might have thought that this was an offense under the Firearms Act. If that is the reason for what they did to Earl Christopher, my God, it shows the standard of the legal department of the TTPS and Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. He added the only thing acquiring sniper rifles for the SSA might do was cause administrative glitches because another organization had to buy those rifles for it. This has been going on for the last few years in the TTPS. The object now seems to be, whoever is the king or the queen, your role is to try to take down that person and your reward is to get the crown. Griffith said he saw it when he was commissioner from 2018 to 21. There was a certain individual, Griffith is saying, he tried to target someone so that he could be charged while he was a DCP. Then he put a fake report that stopped a man from becoming an ACP to become a DCP. Griffith did not reveal the names of these people. When I was commissioner, they certainly would not have done what they did with Earl. They would have known what would have happened. Wait. What Double G really saying here? What would have happened if they tried that on him? What you mean by that, Double G? What you would have done if they tried to make an arrest on you, sir? He said they would have known what would have happened. He went on, so what they did was attempt to lie and influence politicians for me to be removed. Griffith's tenure's cup was not extended in December 21 and McDonald Jacob was appointed. Griffith claimed when Jacob was acting commissioner, there were moves to remove him from office as well. This is totally sickening. The PSB is a division of the police that investigates allegations against officers. Griffith said the unit's power should be transferred to the Police Complaints Authority, and I kind of agree with that. I kind of agree with that. Security experts after Earl freed. Next steps critical. A witch hunt is how security consultant and retired Defense Force Major Dirk Barnes described the arrest and the release of Commissioner of Police Earl Haywood Christopher. She was arrested last Thursday in connection with an ongoing probe. Barnes told Guardian Media that with his understanding of the procurement process and what is being put forward in the media, something is not adding up. This is just merely a witch hunt for something, or somebody is not interpreting the Firearms Act properly. I mean, if it is a witch hunt, who is the chief witch hunter? Who is the person responsible for the witch hunt? Or the persons? Because just as scary as it would be for the Commissioner of Police to be involved in illegal activities, it would be also scary if the police under her in the rank and file was seeking a coup d'etat. That's pretty scary too. Good night. What do you think about this oil deal we make with Jamaica? Well, as I said before, we do not produce bunker oil anymore. We were buying it already. To switch from buying it from international sellers, to a Jamaican source seems to me to be a positive. I do not know the relative profitability, how much more or less we would pay or would have been paying, I don't know. If we are paying less, and we are paying that less to Jamaica instead of international companies, I would say that's a positive. Now, I understand that when people say that, the negative, and we had a whole argument about that at the beginning, the negative that people are alluding to is the closure of Petrotrin that caused all of this in the first place. But as I said, we can't start the story from the closure of Petrotrin. We have to start the story from the unsustainability of Petrotrin. And that isn't just a PNM issue, nor a UNC issue, in fact. That's also a Trini citizen issue. I think if you could take a survey and survey many of the former Petrotrin workers and ask them if they're willing for Petrotrin to be reopened just as it was, knowing fully well that it would lose money for the rest of the country, most of those workers would say yes, we rather the country lose money and pay us. That's not just a problem with the politicians and the government. Informant: SSA trained snipers to use 2 rifles. 10 months ago, a key informant warned investigators involved in the Strategic Services Agency probe about the capability of 2 Accuracy International AX2 bolt action sniper rifles imported into the country. The informant's knowledge helped investigators piece together information on what the plans were for the use of the rifles. Senior intelligence sources said 2 months after the Prime Minister's statement in Parliament, a specific team of investigators approached a key informant for assistance in unraveling some of the alleged illicit activities that had previously been revealed in a series of exclusive Express stories. They spoke to the informant who agreed to cooperate with them, said an intelligence source. According to the source, the informant gave a lengthy testimony to the investigators over several days, walking them through the entire process, beginning with his narrative in early 2023 and sharing his perspective and knowledge of SSA activities. During multiple interviews with investigators, he revealed who authorized the acquisition of the sniper rifles and even gave some insight as to how they would be utilized. Potential targets. A national security source commenting on the condition of anonymity also confirmed that the informant provided key information to the investigators. The source said the informant also disclosed potential targets that were to be taken out with the assistance of a covert hit squad that was operating within the SSE, which the Sunday Express reported on exclusively last year. The Express sent several questions related to this informant and what he would have revealed to investigators in some measure to senior police sources. Many of them declined to comment, with one saying, "Don't go there." Another said, "It's delicate." Why can't? And you see, maybe they have nothing to arrest and charge the police commissioner on. But to me, I still have questions about why would the TTPS need sniper rifles? I see that Gary Griffith said it's not illegal because it isn't a prohibited weapon. I understand that. It's not an automatic rifle, so it's not in that prohibited category. But that's kind of a technicality. I don't care if it's prohibited. I would like to know why the SSE needs it. What was their intention for its use? Yvette says, just saying, I would like vote for people who actually could manage businesses. Just saying. Oh, you mean like Trumpy over in the United States? Yeah, Joe. That's the question that needs to be answered. Okay, yes, granted, it wasn't illegal for them to acquire it, or may not have been illegal. Why did they need it though? What was the intention? What was supposed to come out of that? What were those trained snipers supposed to hit? Who was supposed to be their targets? Curious stuff. Very curious stuff. The answer to that question is way above all of our pay grades. Well, I think that's for sure. I believe that's for sure. It's very interesting to know who advised them to arrest without a charge. That's also very interesting, and that's a question that her lawyer is looking to have answered. Who started this? Who was the senior officer? Who was the senior officer who began this whole event? Who gave authorization for this? Because it couldn't be one of the junior officers. It had to be someone pretty high up. And what would be their reason for such? What was the evidence that they got in their hand that gave them the idea, this is the decision we need to make? I don't know. But while we face these difficulties in the national security side, just as you're saying, Steve, about business people running the country, people with intelligence, and I agree with you, I would like, especially especially if we look at the decisions that are currently being made. Like out in the United States, to browse on some of that briefly, there was a bit of battle, quickly, a battle went on quick between yesterday and today. A threat of 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Mexico and Canada leaders called, made the changes necessary, and what would you know? Everyone was worried, oh no, he's going to crash the economy. What is going to happen? How are we going to pay for avocados and Corona Bear? And it turns out that the Mexican president had 10,000 troops in her back pocket that she could pull out and send to the border to help out. Look at that. Concessions abound. Turns out massive investment in the Canadian border could go on. Helicopters could start to patrol. They could appoint a fentanyl czar. All of that could happen in short time. And I would like that in our country. I really would, because there are many things that run obviously like these people aren't capable of running things. Look at this. Importers face mounting costs as customs container stations remain closed. Businesses across the NT are feeling the pinch as the closure of critical customs and excise division, container examination stations at the Port of Spain and Point Lisa ports continues to cause major delays in clearing goods. Business owners have been left grappling with significant delays, escalating storage rent and demurrage fees while they struggle to maintain operations. Meanwhile, there is no word on when the vital inspection stations will reopen. Good night, Nashman. With the structural issue, this decision was made after concerns were raised about the stability of the structure, and Point Lisa's Development Corporation confirmed the shutdown. On September 2nd, 2024, the Customs and Excise Division closed its container examination station at the Port of Spain port due to a rodent infestation. Due to a rodent infestation. A rodent infestation closed one, and the other one had some kind of faulty beam. So now they are both closed. With both facilities out of operation, listen to this, importers have been facing delays in the customs process. As a result, they have been paying overtime to customs officers to have their containers examined directly on their premises, bypassing the normal inspection procedure at the CES facilities. So in a country where drug trafficking, gun trafficking, and human trafficking are all problems, our container stations, the examination stations on both of our major ports have stopped functioning. And now importers are paying customs officers extra money to do the inspections on their private premises. Let's see that customs in Trinidad and Tobago is corrupt. I'm not saying they are corrupt, but let's assume that they are corrupt. Can you imagine an easier arrangement to facilitate corruption? I know it's always been an option, Ronnie, but now it's not an option. That's the problem. Yes, it has always been an option, but now it's not an option. If you want to stay in business, this is what you must do. And those fees are in the thousands of dollars, thousands of dollars in extra fees. Nothing to do with the buying or selling of the product. And of course, as with most of those things, those fees would almost surely be passed on to us, the consumers, the customers. And who's at fault? Well, the port authorities. And they don't care because they get paid either way. You see, that's why people talk about privatizing everything, That's why people regularly talk about privatizing everything. If we reverse through all the things we were speaking about, like Petrotrin, etc. If it's a private owner, where when you lose money from the company, you lose money from yourself, then the impetus remains on you to make sure this thing functions properly. But when all of your salaries are being paid, all of you are unionized workers, they can't fire a soul anyway, they don't care. They really don't care. What does it matter to them? Their salaries are paid either way, and the union would make sure that they can't be fired either way. Let's look at this other story here, something that I'm keeping my eyes and ears on because I'm very interested in it. I'm very interested in what comes of this. Connect Caribe, or Carib, however you pronounce that, I'll assume Caribe. Connect Caribe Regional Ferry aims for first quarter start. Connect Caribe says it's now aiming to begin its regional ferry sailings within the first quarter of 2025. Initially set to begin sailing in August 2024, the company said the unsuitability of the recommended vessels, among other things, led to the delay. Connect Caribe, a subsidiary of Barbadian maritime company Plion Group Incorporated, said it was working on a regional ferry service in January 2024. It said this would include 3 vessels, an 800-passenger cruise ship, a 400-passenger fast ferry, and a dedicated cargo vessel. Initially, the team said intra-regional sailings would begin in November 2024, but at a press conference in May, he said the timeline was accelerated and then they delayed it even more now. Newsday had asked what caused the delay for the new potential date for sailings to begin. The company said we are currently working towards a first quarter start of operations. It said a large vessel would service the northern route and another one the southern route. It is very possible for one route, as explained above, to start before the other. At this juncture, we are unable to give specifics. It added that a cargo vessel would cover the Trinidad, Suriname, Barbados route. On its website, the company says it is currently acquiring ships and will take a phased approach to route development. We intend at the end of this phased approach to add all the CARICOM nations, including Martinique, Guadeloupe, St. Martin, British Virgin Islands, and US Virgin Islands. But in a press release issued on January 31st, after Newsday asked for another update, the company said it is making steady progress. They said the vessels initially recommended were not suitable for Caribbean waters, so they're changing those vessels to more suitable vessels, and then we'd go. You all excited to jump on a ferry and go up the islands? Anyone thinks they'd be a regular on that ferry? I feel like, that ferry could see me. I feel like that ferry could see me, I'd like to take a little ferry trip up the islands. Well, according to the price, I guess. What would that price look like? Yeah, depending on price. Once the price good, that sounds like a trip. And you see the group of millennial young women who bought into the social media trend that to live and truly experience life is to travel the world. Listen. No offense to y'all. Y'all do your thing, But that is obviously a trend sold to millennial young women. And that, I think, is going to really work for something like a ferry through the islands. I think it would be well patronized once the price is reasonable. And hopefully it have some place to sleep. This is a great opportunity for CARICOM to make this a tax-free option. Yep. And with a cargo vessel going up and down the islands. Now, bear in mind, there already are cargo vessels that do that. But another one that opens up more to the general public and such, increase the commerce of small businesses up and down the island. Somebody should be able to make chili baby and run it up and down the island with a boat. That shouldn't be too hard. If the Tobagonians lowering the quality of the Benny ball and Benny stick, I'm sure some other island would be willing. Come down on the port in Tobago, make the Benny stick and red mango, and another small island that might take that job. If Tobagonians are working morning work and forgetting about the Benny stick and stuff now, well, another island might need to seize the opportunity. Grenada makes good. I'm sure they do. I am sure they do. And when you do have morning work to give you another salary, so your salary depends on how good this tastes, and it better taste good. And if this and they say Grenadian, what was it? The drops was dry. If they know to make things dry, so I guess the Benny stick shouldn't be too bad of a problem, you know. Let's look at some regulations here. The Carnival regulations always kind of entertain me to some extent. Carnival 2025 regulations: license required to transport masked revelers. No vehicle may be used to transport masked or facially disguised masqueraders unless a license has been issued by the senior superintendent or superintendent of police in the division where the vehicle owner resides. So you can't just pick up masked people and play you driving about with them on the road. It's not going to be allowed. The general public remains prohibited from wearing costumes resembling police and military uniforms, and all depictions that could be perceived as offensive to religious beliefs are off limits once again this carnival. Now, that's a very strange thing. That's a very strange thing to me. And I mean, these are the regulations as they are pretty much every year. Thanks very much, Evets. I suppose that's Steve Backward. Offensive to religious beliefs? Nearly every religion, if followed strictly, would find a large portion of modern carnival festivities to be offensive. So what do you mean depictions that could be perceived? And the thing is, they're not. The thing isn't even saying depictions that are offensive. That could be perceived. Many things can be perceived as offensive to religious beliefs. So, you know those dreadlock hats? The hats where you put on a hat and it has dreadlocks? Can't that be perceived as offensive to Rastafarians? Strange stuff. And it gets stranger. The regulations also prohibit any attire that could be interpreted as mimicking official government or security agency uniforms. Carnival will commence at 4 a.m. on March 3rd and end at midnight on March 4th. The long-standing prohibitions against carrying weapons, explosives, or any object resembling a firearm also remain. Additionally, the use of fireworks, flares, and similarly incendiary devices without proper authorization is prohibited. Smearing or daubing substances on others is banned. Okay. So they say. Juve is banned basically. All that all that madness you all do at Juve, it is banned. As is public lewdness. Anybody knows what public lewdness is? Anybody out there knows what public lewdness is? Public lewdness is what carnival is about to a large extent. Sexually suggestive actions. That's what carnival is about. That's public lewdness. It's supposedly banned during carnival. Public lewdness, offensive gestures. What? So, if somebody find stabbing out to be an offensive gesture, is it banned? And the singing of obscene songs. Which many songs during the season can be classified as. And someone is singing about a fat pokey or something of the such. Something that isn't fitting in the attire that it's supposed to be contained within. Isn't there an artist that is singing something of the such? How can that be interpreted other than obscene? Hey, I always find that these carnival regulations and rules are just humorous. Very, very humorous. Funny stuff. Like, why bother making these rules if we know there's no way anybody is taking these rules seriously? And I made a video today. I started back, I'm trying to get back into some of these shorter videos over on YouTube and eventually also to my shorter videos on TikTok too. And I made a video speaking about the cutting of USAID. And USAID is a kind of misnomer. It's a 619 they like to give you. They call it USAID, and many people have the assumption that this is aid from the United States. This is aid given to countries. But that aid is an acronym. It's an agency. It's the U.S. Agency of International Development. And they give money all through the world for their own weird little ideals. And it's interesting that Trump and his team cut that. That to me is the office of the U.S. empire. If you look at what they sponsor, probably I wouldn't be surprised if the gay parade in Trinidad and Tobago is sponsored by USAID. I wouldn't be surprised if the LGBTQ plus organizations in Trinidad and Tobago are sponsored by USAID. And they've been all over the world doing their thing, and they're being cut. That's going to be very interesting to me, because that was basically an economy. There was an NGO. Ronnie says, nah, that's sponsored by the UN. But here's the kicker, Ronnie. Who sponsors the UN? It's a kind of strange thing, You'd look at so for example, they'd sponsor gender something, or a drag queen story, or some kind of drag queen something in some other person's country, and you look at the sponsors and you see UNDP, USAID, and some Center for Progress or something like that. But then the USAID is that government weirdness in the US. But you look at the UNDP and you look at who sponsors the UNDP, and it's the same USAID. And then you look at the Center for Progress and you look at who sponsors them, and it's the same USAID. So it's the same group sponsoring all the groups that sponsor this. So it makes it look like it's from all about the place, but it's one group. And what I find strange about this is that it's not that this group is out here attempting to improve people's infrastructure. Most of their money goes towards education. And by education, they mean cultural change. Their aim is to educate you into the cultural progressive American belief. And that has been the aim of this organization for a long time now. You look at the things they sponsor and you wonder what's the benefit. Well, I'm talking about USAID now, USAID, that has been basically shut down by Elon Musk and Donald Trump and their crew looking at things to cut from the US government. And to the people complaining about this, they can't be the same people that were complaining about the United States being an empire. Because that's their office of empire. That they have USAID offices all about the world. I believe Trinidad has a USAID office too. The Agency of International Development. I'm sorry, but I would like our culture to develop on its own. I would like our culture to develop based on what our people believe and what our people decide. If the United States is dictating the direction of our culture, then we are basically a colony of theirs. We aren't an independent nation in that term. You know, I was looking. Here's an article that shows you. Here's an article that shows you the nature of some of this UNDP and USAID kind of stuff. Women urged to play more meaningful role in Haiti's future. An advisor to Haiti's Transitional Presidential Council, Laurent Sincere, is urging women to play more meaningful role in the future socio-economic development of the French-speaking Caribbean community country. So Haiti is struggling on the edge of failed state. They need to manage their country. The country needs to be built from the ground up. But this convention, what was it called? A meeting, a program? Over the edge, Kevin Harry. I'm sorry, it's not on the edge, it's over the edge. Granted. This program, sponsored by the UNDP, which obviously gets funds from USAID also, is out here attempting to get Haiti to involve more women in their politics. Like, that's where Haiti's problem is. And this is the issue with many of these organizations. USAID has sponsored aid in law enforcement, aid in Trinidad in rehabilitating criminals for decades. Have we in Trinidad experienced better rehabilitation of our criminals? I don't think so. That's because when you read what they're actually attempting to teach them, it's some weird, woke, progressive weirdness out of a university somewhere that has zero impact on a lot of their lives. But somebody makes a lot of money pushing it. What do you think of the tariffs? I see it's already giving results. Mexico folded already, and Canada too. I don't know if you saw that yet. Canada also folded. Mexico and Canada barely lasted a couple hours. So the tariffs are working just how those who are fans of the tariffs suggested that they would work. They're working not just as a way to make money, not just as a kind of money making scheme. There, it's actually Clinton's to help them, as a means to force action out of countries. What were the tariffs meant to tackle? Well, according to which country you're talking about, they're meant to tackle various things. So out of Mexico, one of the main things he was aiming to tackle was the border issues. The issues of allowing unfettered migration through Mexico's northern border, and also the passage of fentanyl through the border also. So he was looking for someone to, he was trying to force them to do something about that. And in the case of Canada, it was similar. Border issues. One is stopping illegal immigration, and the other is on the idea of fentanyl. And here's Canada's prime minister's response. I just had a good call with President Trump. Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-US joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I have also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. Proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together. Yes, but it's not just Canada's defense that is subsidized. Pretty much all of Europe's defense is subsidized by the United States. And that's another problem that he speaks about. They don't pay enough for their military, knowing that if the Gobar happens to land on the fan blade and spreads asunder, that the US will be there to step in to help them. And Mr. Trump is saying that we don't want to do that anymore. You see, his vice president made a statement where, and he's been making this statement where he's referring to the world as a multipolar world. And the idea of the previous US governments was that they were aiming at a unipolar world where the United States was basically the big daddy, everybody's fairy god daddy in the world. And they control the goings and comings of everything. But what they're attempting now, at least from what their vice president was saying, was the facilitating of a multipolar world. And in a multipolar world, you can't look to them as being the boss that has to control everything and give you everything. No, they are just another player in the game as everyone else. And if they are just another player in the game as everyone else, you can't have an unfair relationship with them and say, well, we have to keep it like that because of your position. No, there's no position here. Everyone is just playing the game together. And to some extent, I agree. If the United States is sending billions of dollars to a specific country, and that specific country isn't even a loyal vassal of the United States, then don't send money there. Of course. That makes sense to me. I am not a US citizen, it ain't my tax money, but that makes sense to me. If you're sending money to a country and many of these people keep doing things that negatively affect your country, won't you stop sending the money? Some people were speaking about the Marshall Plan out of the United States that came out of World War II, where Japan was devastated, Europe was devastated. So what the United States basically did was created a plan where they would not charge tariffs on those countries to export goods into the US market, while they allow those countries to charge stiff tariffs on them so that US goods don't flood their markets. And the idea was to build back up those countries, those economies, using the power of the US economy. It's strange that so many countries benefited from such while still turning around and calling the US the modern Satan. And for me, if I am the Satan, well, you might as well not be giving. But also, if you're thinking about a plan like that after a world war, how long should such a plan stay in place? We are currently what? 80 years from the World War? Should that plan still be in place? I mean, we have them sponsoring here Family Planning Association. Do we need the United States to sponsor family planning in Trinidad and Tobago? What's our birth rate? What's our birth rate? I'm not 100% sure about what those changes are yet, Michael Modesto. Personally, it doesn't affect me, but as far as it seems from what I've read, the idea of making it more useful and getting better people to come into your country seems like their idea of America first. And I can't be upset with a country for seeking their own interests. To me, that's what a government is supposed to do. Trinidad and Tobago's government is supposed to seek the interest of Trinidad and Tobago and Trinidadians and Tobagonians. That's their primary job. Your job isn't to seek the benefit and interest of everyone in the world. That doesn't make sense. Everyone in the world didn't vote for you. Everyone in the world doesn't pay your salary. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. And what did Mexico do? So we spoke about what Canada's changes were. Trump said, I just spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. It was a very friendly conversation wherein she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and the United States. These soldiers will be specifically designated to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants into our country. We further agreed to immediately pause the anticipated tariffs for a 1-month period, during which we will have negotiations headed by Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Commerce, and high-level representatives from Mexico. I look forward to participating in those negotiations with President Sheinbaum as we attempt to achieve a deal between our two countries. You want to include more people, better immigration for all levels. Yeah, the thing is, if the United States really attempts to sharpen their immigration system, where they revoke the entry of people who do not benefit them and only take the entry of people who do benefit them, that will change a lot in the United States, because that's not the case currently. Since the Obama years, when the attempt was made to try to look much kinder, to get the empathetic people in there, and to give a much more leftist view of foreign relations, they attempted to, change it from just the brain drain. We aren't just taking the best and the brightest, we're taking those in need. So refugees and people who have been hurt and in more vulnerable positions in society and in the world, that's who they're taking. If Trump is saying we aren't taking any of those anymore, we want only the best and brightest, the brain drain spigot, the brain drain faucet around the world might turn on very quickly. If the case is that professionals in Trinidad and Tobago now have a very quick, very easy and quick procedure into the United States, and then on top of it, it seems like the United States is looking to be run with a much more business mind, they're going to attract a lot of brain drain from the world. They will. I could tell you. Look at Trinidad, some of the issues that we spoke about here. Container examination sectors destroyed on the port. If you're a businessman, your whole business is in limbo. You have to pay customs officers overtime and probably try and run a bribe and get them a bottle of rum and all this dotishness. If you see it that your skills allow you to be taken quickly with very little complication, why would you stay? And I'm sure that's a question many people ask themselves. Why stay? Like, yes, patriotism and loyalty to your country and all of that. But if it seems like it's running into the ground, do you stay till it crashes? Or do you jump off? That's all I have for now, folks. Thank you for joining in. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. I am Nathan Springer. This has been the Mindful Live. I'll see you guys again for the next one, which is going to be around tomorrow. Around that 9:30 p.m. time. Until then, people, hold it down. Stay good, stay well, stay inside. Outside, they're a little crazy. Ronnie says, I love it here till the wheels fall off. Woo-hoo! Maybe. You know, as if I was only just single Nathan Springer, Trinity are dead. For sure. But when you have a family, there are other considerations. I feel like as a single man, a home invasion, you might have jumped through a window and make a run for it. But what you're doing with a home invasion when you have a wife and 2 daughters? Yeah. So, yep, I'll see you guys for the next one. Until then.